everybody, Gannon here, back at it again with another one of my Star Trek reviews. I'm not sure how to say this, but I just got done watching the Star Trek Picard Season 2 finale, and unfortunately, I have to report to everybody that I kinda loved it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I haven't been shilling this show from its very first episode. Overall, I found this season to be thoroughly entertaining and well made, with only 1 or 2 episodes that really fall short and misuse the mere 10 episodes that unfortunately seems to be becoming the standard for modern Trek seasons. I've probably given the last 4 episodes way too high of a score, but that's totally okay because this season is just fun. I've had fun consuming it and watching it up until the very end. None of it felt like a chore. Fates collide in this episode as we meet the journey's end of a handful of characters, including, unfortunately, our beloved Q. We have to say goodbye to him in the season finale. Crazy, insane, bold decisions were made and insane events happened in this season finale, including the return of Wesley Crusher. Now we know why we aren't going to see him in that season 3 TNG reunion. All of this and more is going to be discussed, so stay tuned. The episode starts off with Picard and the gang preparing to go and protect Renee Picard at the Europa mission. Talene is about to transport over to protect Renee when Picard just kind of steps into her little watcher transporter device and goes along with her because he highly suspects that Talene is going to sacrifice herself in some way in order to protect Renee, because as you know, in the last episode, Borg Queen Agnes Jurati did give Picard the information that one Renee is going to die and another is going to survive. Picard is very worried that Talene is going to die because at this point, he's rather fond and attached to her. Talene then argues with Picard and tells him that her fate in her life is not up to him to protect or for him to decide what she does with it. She is Renee's watcher. She's been watching her entire life, and she feels obligated to protect her in the most pivotal, crucial moment. Good old Adam Soong walking through the venue. He's here, of course, to sabotage the Europa mission because the evil Borg Queen told Adam Soong that his whole future relies on him stopping this mission. Adam Soong is going to attempt to stop the mission in 2 ways. One, he is going to attempt to directly murder Renee Picard, and then number 2, if that fails, he has a backup plan in the form of these very militant, very advanced drones that he has at his lab. Rios is able to commandeer at least one of them, which he uses to destroy the rest of the drones, so that is number 1. Adam Soong's plan is just ruined. When he goes and attempts to murder Renee Picard, he uses a toxin, like a neurotoxin that is implanted in this patch on his hand, so a very typical assassin's way of killing somebody. Adam Soong is an excellent villain. I loved him in this episode, especially. There was just a couple scenes that really made you think that this guy is an absolute awful psychopath manipulator. Quest to actually go and meet some of the astronauts that are going on the Europa mission. When the lady's like, okay, well, for safety and protocol reasons, we really can't let that happen right now. He's like, excuse me, haven't my donations to this mission, doesn't that constitute me 5 minutes alone with the astronauts? He was so mean and manipulative about it. I love Adam Soong. He's actually a really good character. Brent Spiner just bringing it as always. Talene approaches Renee in this episode and actually gets to meet her, which is supposed to be this really touching and cute moment, but from me, the viewer's perspective, I'm just sitting here thinking if I was Renee, I would be totally freaking the hell out. I would be extremely scared. There's a scene after Talene and Renee make the initial altercation where Renee leaves the room and she's like, oh my god, there's a crazy woman in there. Dr. Soong, help me, because Adam Soong is actually in the hallway ready for Renee, ready to meet her and to kill her and assassinate her and ruin this mission. However, it's not Renee. Renee actually did believe Talene and trusted Talene to a degree because Talene used her technology to mask herself as Renee, was the one to accept Dr. Soong's poison toxin hand instead. Falls into Picard's arms and dies there. Rip Talene. Not the first character to go in this episode, actually. There is a handful of deaths that occur in this episode. Both ways that Dr. Dr. Adam Soong attempts to sabotage the Europa mission, fail miserably, and he is super salty about this. Later in the episode, he goes back to his lab and just throws a complete fit. Not to mention, when he sits down in his lab, he starts to notice that there is like malware on his computer and that there are files being automatically deleted. All of his years of research are just being destroyed. Who is it? Who is the perpetrator? It is none other than Kore. She is using her Oculus Rift to actually go and infiltrate Dr. Soong's computers to delete his research as a form of revenge. She says, "This is for all of my sisters that were just merely experiments to you." Now, this is where one of the craziest things about this season happen. Kore then is seen later just walking through a park, and she's met by none other than Wesley Crusher, who now canonically is recognized as a goddamn Time Lord. He is literally Doctor Who. He is a traveler, somebody who travels through space and time, and something that's like a huge bombshell is that we actually learn that the travelers, the people who are like these all-knowing protectors of the universe who can just travel through space and time merely using their thoughts, they are the ones responsible for creating the Watcher organization. They are the higher alien race that uses the Watchers and puts them around the timeline, the fabric of time and space. As Wesley Crusher says in this episode, it's just ever so delicate. And I was sitting here thinking, gosh, that is so bold and awesome. I don't really like Wesley Crusher. I never have. I was a little bit disappointed to hear that they weren't going to show him any love, like he wasn't going to show up to the TNG reunion. I'm just really happy that he showed up in this episode. The only thing that I definitely have to criticize it for, and I'm sure everybody else was feeling the same way, why is this opportunity, why is this moment wasted on Kore of all people? I mean, if we're going to be honest here, Kore is just the way that they decided to recycle Soji's actress. She is not very impactful this season at all. If you were to take her away from the season, the events wouldn't have changed. She literally just left Dr. Singh's lab and then deleted his research. She didn't get in his way and tamper with him to the point where it would affect Picard and the gang's mission. So it just kind of confuses me. There was no point in this series where it was implied that she's like some kind of gifted person worthy of becoming a traveler. Wesley, as you know, showed gifted properties. He was an extremely bright child. Seasons 1 and 2 almost shown to be smarter than most of the adults on the Enterprise. He was extremely perceptive. Why is Kore deserving of this title? Why is she worthy of this opportunity? It just makes no sense. Also, Wesley's really not going to have an interaction with Picard. That is crazy to me. Like, he better show up in the next season or something. He's really not allowed to interact with Picard at all. It makes no sense, especially because, like we know, it's canon. He returns in Nemesis. In Nemesis, the director kind of says that it's left up to the viewer to interpret what Wesley is doing in that moment, whether he's like the Watcher or whether he's actually a part of Starfleet because he's wearing a uniform. Also, there's a deleted scene where he's going to join the Titan, but it's a deleted scene. Anyways, that's just my gripe with the whole Wesley scene. It's amazing. I loved it. It was very bold. Great part of the episode. But why Kore? Just doesn't really make a lot of sense. It kind of takes away from the moment when you bestow this honor, this crazy privilege of protecting the universe to just this weird, unimportant, lame character, if we're gonna be real. Talene died due to literal fate. However, she could have avoided it. She high-key is a secret agent against an old man who she knows is dangerous, and whether she lived or died, it doesn't really change the fact that Renee was going to complete the mission successfully. Talene got to meet Renee, which Q explains later in the episode is the best outcome for Talene. Depressingly, in all other timelines, she just dies without meeting her. So at least in this one, she dies maybe earlier than she would have in other timelines. At least she got to do what she wanted to do most, which was meet Renee. Renee completes the Europa mission and Dr. Soong watches the footage of her going up into space and he's so salty. It's actually a really great scene. Go back to Chateau Picard though for like the latter half of the episode. Team Picard is now back together again and it is now time to resolve the Q plot that has been spanning over the season. Q is dying and now that Picard has finished his mission and he actually got Renee to complete the Europa mission, the timeline is now the way it's supposed to be. be. Q shows up, and it's finally time for him to explain to Picard why he's done this, why this whole series of events has happened. So something that's really cool is that Picard has to take the key to the room in which he later opens the door and lets his mother out, which leads to her untimely demise. Picard is actually forced to make the decision to take out the brick, put in the key that unlocks the door to the room. It's comical how easily it is to spot this brick in the wall. There's no way for the next 300 years is not going to be like, this brick looks a little bit out of place. But it's just kind of hits really hard. In that moment, you have to realize that Picard is accepting his fate. He's accepting who he is as a person. He's literally letting go. By putting this key in the wall, he is putting it there so that his little small child self can find it in the future, unlock the door, and allow his mother to die. He's allowing that series of events to occur. For one thing, I mean, Jean-Luc knows at this point, you just don't mess with time travel. You got to make things go back to the way that they are intended to be. It's also just a little bit more than that. It ties into Q's ultimate conversation with Picard about how Q did all this for Picard. He helped Picard, putting a suture in the wound of this timeline, allowing Picard to go through this whole debacle and redeem himself, because we learn that Q just literally cares about Picard. He looks him in the eye and he's like, I did all this because I care about you. I'm about to die, and I'm about to die alone, and I don't want that for you. Of all the people in the universe, I have a couple favorites, and you, Picard, were always one of them. When I saw this scene, dude, I was honestly like kind of close to tears. It is crazy how much I love Q. I'm very sad and disappointed that he's dead and gone forever, essentially. But it just goes to show you that the Q were really never omnipotent gods. There are a lot of higher species and energy beings in Star Trek, and the Q and the Q Continuum are just another one of those species. It also just goes to show you that no matter how omnipotent and godly you think an organism is, everything has an expiration date. Everything must die, even the Q. After Q and Picard have their little moment, after Q finally gives his explanation for why everything has happened, it's now time for Picard to return to his crew. It's time for Q to send them all home. Q makes a remark about how he has a little extra surprise in store, but it's just under the understanding of both the viewer and Picard that the moment that Q sends them home, he's going to be using the last remainder of his power, and he's going to die after that. And man, that was really sad. Something crazy though, people were definitely making predictions about this, about what Chris was going to do in this season, what his decisions were going to be, especially because he was definitely falling in love with his Edith Keeler girlfriend. Chris Rios actually decides to stay behind in the past, so no Chris Rios show for sure. Like 1000% we're never going to get a Stargazer spinoff. Chris Rios decides to stay in the past with his new girlfriend and their son, and it's very, very sweet, but also kind of cryptic how at the end of the episode, Picard is now talking to Gannon, makes a comment about how at the beginning of the season, she knew exactly what was going on, everything that was going on, but she was just going to let it play out and let Picard go on this adventure because, you know, that's kind of how time works. Second, she says that, hey, Picard, you're really smart, but you're not that observant. I've had this picture of Rios up in my bar forever with his girlfriend and their son. She goes on to explain that Rios started a medical organization with the doctor. Gannon then cryptically described their deaths and how Rios has been long dead, which is, you know, the creepy thing that always occurs with time travel. But something that I don't understand is, like, did Rios, his girlfriend, and their son, did they experience World War III? This was, like, not making a lot of sense to me because in this episode, Dr. Adam Soong gets all of his files deleted and his life's work destroyed. He has his Joker moment, opens up a file, and then he pulls out the Khan Project, dun 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 dun, which was super cool. It's definitely the simple explanation for how World War III is going to come and how Dr. Soong is going to develop genetically engineered beings that are going to become the next Hitler. Did Rios and his girlfriend, did they experience nuclear holocaust? Did they experience bombing? Because Gannon then just told Picard that the small boy was actually a very talented scientist who brought a whole bunch of smart minds together to create ways to clean the air in the oceans. Like, how does that make any sense? How long was World War III? Did it happen in this timeline? They kind of were talking about Rios and his family like it didn't happen. To my understanding, I'm pretty sure World War III happens within like 10 years after where they were in the timeline? I don't know. Is that a plot hole? Did World War III happen or not? The con file implies that it did happen. The end of this episode just kind of implies that the timeline that they were in wasn't necessarily even contaminated, but everything is lining up and going how it was supposed to go originally, and it's just a loop paradox? Which, if we're gonna be honest, does really make a lot of the canon mistakes and plot holes previously in the season look kind of bad and less, you know, convincing. Because when Picard got to his timeline, it seemed like everything that he did in the previous timeline was what he was meant to do. He was supposed to hide the key. They were supposed to have the shootout in Chateau Picard so that there was bullet holes coming fluidly together like it's a paradox. It really makes me not totally convinced that, hey, that was a previous contaminated timeline where you're able to make a lot of creative changes in liberties. It really just makes me think that, okay, those were just kind of plot holes and canon mistakes that are natural when making a Star Trek time travel arc of this magnitude, I guess. Anyways, I'm not really bothered by it that much. Q returns them back to the Stargazer. However, Chris Rios is of course not there because of Q magic. He's just able to remain in the previous time period without really affecting things much. Obviously, from a mile away, we can definitely tell that the Borg Queen that appeared in episode 1 was Agnes. She's actually just been drifting around for 400 years with her small, nice little Borg faction. I know a lot of people are going to be asking, what has Agnes Trotty been doing for the last 400 years? Why didn't she go and warn Starfleet about Wolf 359? And there's just a simple explanation for that, is because now that she is the Borg Queen to a degree, she's got to have time sensitivity. Like, she's got to understand that if she were to do anything that would disrupt events that are supposed to happen, it's going to change the timeline hella. So my explanation is that Agnes Trotty and her Borg faction were just chilling on the low-key, staying away from the Federation and just letting the events unfold like they're meant to, coming in at the final moment that they're supposed to be here, because this is like the paradoxal loop. Picard now is able to trust Agnes Jurati, where she then takes command of the whole Starfleet fleet of ships, which is just amazing to see the fleet again. I think I see like a Nebula class there. I'm pretty sure I saw a Galaxy class, eking at the classic Trek designs. Oh, also, I'm pretty sure I saw an Akira class ship as well. Agnes Jurati, Borg Queen, explains that there is going to be a space phenomena that is going to potentially murder billions of people and just vaporize a good quadrant of the galaxy. She needs Picard to trust her so she could take command of the fleet and put all of the shields together so that they could block the space phenomenon from spreading and just becoming a huge catastrophe. Because Picard has gone through this whole debacle and he's learned his lesson, obviously that happens, but there's a little nick in the space shield. Rafi then goes over to comms and signals the other ship to recalibrate their shields, and then you know who pops up on the screen, baby? Elnor! And this definitely cannot be like the same Elnor. That other Elnor is totally dead. I feel like Q probably ripped this Elnor. It's just a copy Elnor from another timeline or something. It's basically the same dude. Elnor's back. He's alive, which I'm happy about. It would have been extremely depressing if Q, Talene, and Elnor all died this episode. That would have been really, really lame. Before I go any further, though, I do have to mention about how Rafi and Seven were amazing in this episode. They had a beautiful on-screen kiss that is just long overdue. I loved Rafi and Seven's relationship this season. It is a huge stark contrast to the very weak and lame introduction to their relationship, the end of season 1, and how it was just abruptly laid down on us without any foreshadowing or anything. Also, at the end of the episode, Picard gives 7 of 9 a field commission because he's Admiral goddamn Picard. This dude can do whatever he wants. He is Starfleet God. A lot of people were questioning why 7 of 9 was denied a Starfleet commission and why Starfleet was iffy about her actually entering Starfleet, whereas Icheb entered Starfleet and actually moved up through the ranks, and people saw this as a huge plot hole. Just put some context in there. Icheb was an angel. Icheb was assimilated as a child, picked up by the Voyager crew, behaved super well in contrast to 7 of 9, who was almost abducted by the Voyager crew, forced to assimilate back into a human. There were many times where she just tried to get the whole ship assimilated and she betrayed betrayed the Voyager crew. This was definitely logged and put into ship's log. Not to mention, I imagine there are a handful of crew members on the Voyager crew who probably have a bone to pick with her because of that. 7 of 9 has just have a long history of disobedience and just having like a dangerous connection to the Borg, whereas Icheb never really had any of that. He was really like a model citizen and never acted up. So I could totally understand why maybe they would be reluctant to give 7 of 9 of all people a Starfleet commission when she literally betrayed the Voyager ship like at least 3 times. Lastly, at the end of the episode, now that Picard has gone through this journey, now he's learned a lot of lessons. He's learned to accept the past. He's learned to accept what happens to his mother. He's learned to accept himself, really. Fortunately, he takes Q's words to heart and he doesn't let them go to waste. At the end of the episode, he returns to Chateau Picard in the present day and he lays the work down on Laris, man. He starts charming her. She is like stoked that Picard is coming on to her. Finally, this dude is ready to fuck somebody. This season, if we're going to be honest, is literally just the get Picard to finally season. It was beautiful. I think Laris and Picard are extremely cute. It's almost like the relationship grew while Picard was interacting with Talene in a weird way. I think it's extremely cute that Picard has this awesome Romulan spy girlfriend. But I am secretly just a little bit disappointed that there is even less and less of a chance now that Picard is going to end up with Beverly Crusher. That's kind of my OTP. I love Picard and Beverly Crusher. It's like my one true pair. I ship the hell out of them. Yes, that was Picard Season 2. Extreme improvement from Season 1. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say about this season. I, for one, just gotta say, I enjoyed it. It was a fun season of Trek. It definitely had some flaws, definitely had some canon mistakes, but I don't really care. It was fun. Loved the cast. I kind of loved the ending conclusion. I was really scared that they were not going to be able to wrap this up in a good way. Normally, New Trek has a rough time making good season finales, but I like this one. So for all those reasons, I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. Yes, this was a pretty important episode. A lot of important events happened. It is the death of Q episode, and I think for all those reasons and just how entertained I was, how much fun I had, it deserves an 8.5 out of 10. I am now done shilling Star Trek Picard. What did you guys think of that season? Were you guys content with the final episode? What did you think of the Wesley Crusher cameo? How do you feel about Q's death? I want to know about all of it. Leave it down in the comments below. I love reading comments. They're my favorite thing about YouTube. If you're enjoying the content that you see on the channel, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. When we hit 10K, I am going to cosplay as a Star Trek Xenos, and I am going to go out and probably harass people in public and film it. Join the Discord if you'd like to discuss any of the topics that we discuss here on the channel. The link is in the bottom of every video. And with all that being said, hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Until next week when I review the next episode of Strange New Worlds. Live long and prosper. Can I subscribe?